Right, dude, it's hard to act serious. Okay. Daymare, written by Ashton Luloa. And just a heads up, I'm talking in a low voice, so the gains are high on the microphone, which pretty much means you're gonna hear me fucking breathe and, lick my lips. So just a warning. I apologize. I don't know how to fix that. Chapter 1. I see food people. It's funny how life turns out. Everything almost seems to be predetermined, as if life already knows the ending to everyone's story. Whatever life tries to throw at me, it always feels as if something happens for a calculated reason. I've done my best to switch things up, but the outcome tends to stay the same. I don't think there's anything I could actually do to change my life. I'm stuck living in a movie that I can't direct, and at this point, I somewhat accept my fate that the script will never change. However, I will admit I'm starting to see the benefits of having a shitty plot written within my life story. I may not enjoy who I am, but I've finally been experiencing a blessing in disguise during these past few months. Believe it or not, I think I found a glitch in the Matrix, or maybe some type of loophole in my life's contract. It's hard to explain, but I can finally do whatever I want now. Literally, I can do anything. Before I tell you how I exploited this cheat code in life, it's probably best to give you some more context. Now, I never paid too much attention in school, but the one thing I haven't forgotten from history class was how the purpose of life for an average human was pretty straightforward in the early days of civilization. All a person had to do before the modern era society was simply stay alive, find food, find shelter, and find a person willing to fuck you so the human race can continue to live on. Seems simple, right? Well, as time evolved, the ability to physically stay alive eventually became a little too easy to accomplish. Because in our current timeline, all we really have to do to stay alive is find a way to make money. We don't have to worry about hunting for food or knowing how to grow any crops. All we have to do is make enough money to afford it, and just like that, life becomes an effortless challenge to physically survive. However, the annoying problem with the human behavior is the fact that once we find a solution to make something easier in our lives, we always end up finding something else to complain about. We no longer live like animals, and as it gets easier to survive, we strive to use our free time to gradually ascend into enlightenment of overthinking and finding our true purpose. We evolved the challenge of our physical survival into mental survival. It is pretty cool to realize how far mankind has progressed within a couple centuries, but during this stage of human evolution is where all my personal problems were born. Sure, it's pretty dope that life isn't too physically difficult anymore. I mean, what the fuck was I gonna do with a wooden spear during the caveman days? I'd probably die trying to fight a mammoth, like the dumbass I am. The thing about not having the daily distraction of wondering when I'll get my next meal or if a wild animal will try to kill me today like my ancestors did is the fact that there are now more things to worry about that didn't ever exist in the ancient past. What is my career going to be? Am I going to be well liked by others? Will I ever get married? I'm probably pissing off my ancestors every day with these weak-minded thoughts. While they worked extremely hard every day to prevent things from killing them and their family, I'm working just as hard every day just to prevent the possibility of killing myself. Without a doubt, I already know for sure that my great 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 grandfather is probably so frustrated with me. He's probably telling my great 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 grandfather how much of a pussy I am. Well, fuck them. They don't understand. Life evolved into a different game, and this dumbass game has too many complicated rules to figure out if you're winning the game or losing it. It's as if society got bored with the challenge to physically survive after everything got automated with the creation of the economy. So they upgraded the game to make it more difficult to mentally survive. And now emotions like happiness and satisfaction play a more important role than food and water in keeping us alive. I guess I might be too pessimistic or maybe just dramatic. I mean, I could be grateful for the things I have, but I have no passion in life that mentally keeps me satisfied with waking up every day and living the life I created. I work at a fucking grocery store at the age of 28. The only hobby that I have that keeps me consistently happy, aka keeps me distracted from my problems, is playing video games. And when it comes to relationships, I've learned it's better to be alone so I don't remind myself how much of a disappointment I can be to someone. To sum it all up, I'm pretty much a negative piece of shit waiting for someone to be my toilet paper and wipe away all my problems. Fuck. That analogy just literally made me gag. What a dumb attempt to be poetic. Anyways, let's get back to the point. We're not worried about finding our next meal like our ancestors. What we're mainly focused on is making sure our time alive isn't wasted, hoping to find something purposeful in our lives so we can look in the mirror and be proud of the person that we make eye contact with. I don't really know what kind of person other people see in the mirror, but oftentimes, I don't see anyone at all when I stare into my reflection. My therapist always admires my creative words when I tell her stuff like this, but dude, I literally don't see myself when I look in the mirror most days. I often have to wear a hat to deal with my messy hair instead of making it look nice because there's no one in the mirror when I look at it when I'm in the bathroom getting ready. If you're still a little confused, let me try to paraphrase this. I think I'm going absolutely fucking insane. I somehow hallucinate while being stone cold sober. Sometimes I don't sleep for 2 or 3 days. When I do finally get a chance to sleep, it's usually for only 5 hours since I always have to wake up for work early in the morning. With the constant lack of sleep, I'm confident it's my undiagnosed insomnia playing Jedi mind tricks on my brain, but at this point I literally believe in the possibility that I might be a modern day vampire. My skin doesn't burn in the sun, but hopefully I'm like Edward Cullen type of vampire. I mainly just want his abs. And Kristen Bell. Kristen Stewart. I fucked that up. A cool little fun fact about being invisible in front of the mirror is that it's not the only sober hallucination I experience in my day-to-day life. Something I've chosen to hide from my therapist, and for good reason, is the fact that the lack of sleep I get from my job has given me a sort of superpower I can't really explain. I kind of really enjoy it actually, and there's no way in hell I'm going to let my therapist or recommended psychiatrist take away the only thing that makes me enjoy being on this earth by silencing it with a bottle of pills. It's fun to walk down the street and see a giant panda playing with vehicles in the parking lot like they're toy cars. I admire the life-size G.I. Joe action figures who open the door for me when I enter a building and advise me to watch my six. And I fucking love how I can get more than 0 to little sleep a day. Because if I did get a full 8 hours of sleep every night, I'd probably still be living a miserable life and end up choosing to sleep forever. I'm without a doubt probably having psychotic episodes, but that's besides the point. After years of struggling with diagnosed borderline personality disorder and major depression, I finally have a social life again, and that's the very first step my therapist advised me to find. Sure, it may be a social life with inanimate objects at my workplace or non-existing entities created by my subconscious imagination, but at least it's something that helps me get through the day and keeps me grateful to enjoy being alive. When I go to work, the cereal boxes at my job are the funniest people I've ever met, even though they're all assholes to each other and have a serious gambling problem. The time I spend with them creates unforgettable memories. They talk over each other a lot, but the only time I ever witnessed a sense of peace among the cereal boxes was when they all worked together to organize a betting system to be able to place bets on each other during the week. On Mondays, they bet the over-under on how many cereals we bought in a day. Most of the time, the over-under has been placed around 11, and most of the time the cereals like to bet more than 11 boxes will be sold during my shift. Mondays can get pretty chaotic. I usually avoid restocking the cereal aisle on that day since there's always a civil war of racist words between the over and under bettors. I could barely hear anything at all due to the constant screaming and cheering whenever a customer would grab a cereal box to put in their cart. Even worse, when a customer grabs the cereal and then second guesses their decision and puts it back on the shelf. I tend to embarrass myself a lot on Mondays. The sound of a roaring crowd of degenerate cereal brands kinda gets overwhelming. I lose focus on reality when there's just too much going on. The most common way I get caught being crazy while at work is when I tell the cereals to shut up and a customer overhears me. Most of the time, customers just give me a confused look if they hear me, but the worst ones are when a customer is talking while I tell the cereals to shut up and they mistake my words to be towards them. Some get angry and confront me, which is usually the best scenario, because the quiet ones who think I told them to shut up politely leave the aisle and make a complaint to my supervisor. If only they could hear the cries and roars of every fucking cereal box like I do, they would probably understand. However, I'm usually stuck explaining to my supervisor that I said shut up over the walkie-talkie to a coworker and not a valued customer, and especially not any cereal boxes, which I can only use once every other month before it starts getting a little suspicious. I do enjoy stocking shelves on Thursdays, though. They usually make bets on which cereal will get bought at all that day, and that's when they make the best jokes. They like to toxically make fun of each other on who they think will be the most disliked cereal that day. They did make a rule where they can't bet on the off-brand boxes. Only the name-brand ones could be bet on to keep it interesting. Besides, the off-brand cereals rarely talk, so none of the other cereals like to get them involved. The poor Cheerios get bullied and picked on the most on Thursdays, but I always secretly bet on the Rice Krispies every time to lose. And the favorite betting day for a majority of the cereal boxes is when they vote for two cereals to face off in a head-to-head matchup and bet on which cereal will be bought first by a customer on Sunday morning. The cereal box that doesn't get picked usually deals with a crowd of Tony the Tigers talking shit on them while they're yelling, "You're not great!" from the third shelf. One time, I had to run away from the aisle into the freezer so I could laugh in peace because the cereals all joined in on a bandwagon bet that the Captain Crunch boxes would get picked first over the Cheerios one day. The first customer to walk down the aisle that morning was a mother and her son, which was always a good sign for a sugary cereal. But that day was a complete anomaly. The mom let her kid pick his own cereal, and as he slowly passed the Captain Crunch, every cereal box was shocked to see the kid grab a box of Cheerios. The honeybee on the Cheerios box loved it though, as he enthusiastically flipped everyone off as he was being put into the shopping cart while the whole aisle of cereal boxes began losing their shit. Ever since that day, the Cheerios earned a little more respect for themselves. Other than that, life is routinely depressing after a full night's worth of sleep. But being sleep deprived has given me the best life I could have ever asked for. I don't always hallucinate every day, but when I'm feeling down, I tend to just pull an all-nighter, and by 10 a.m. the next day, I begin to see a world no one else can see or hear. Back in high school, I had dreams of being a professional baseball player, but being 5'8" and always striking out led me to play on the bench more than I did at first base. I remember being so bummed out when I had to quit the baseball team before I was cut from varsity my senior year. But now, all it takes is one all-nighter and I can go to my local sports park and have a home run derby with Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds. I'll be honest, I always lose, but in my defense, I think it's because I don't take steroids. I even had a three-point contest with Larry Bird, but he always acted like an asshole when he lost, so I stopped showing up to the basketball courts in the morning. I'll be honest, I was definitely cheating. I stopped shooting the ball in real life and chose to lucidly daydream that I was making shots like Steph Curry. Bird had it coming though. Dude was a dick to me, so I played like one. I have no clue what kind of mental disorder I'm going through right now, but so far I really don't care to find out anytime soon. Life has been really shitty these past few years, and I finally have an escape that I feel like I can control. After graduating high school, things just kept going downhill for me mentally. I learned the brutal reality of what life really was, a senseless journey to keep ourselves preoccupied until our eventual death. I couldn't rely on the generic life path of pursuing a career, falling in love, and starting a family like a normal person because, unfortunately, I wasn't normal, and not in a special way either. I was scared of making a decision to go to college because I didn't know what major to choose, and I definitely didn't want to force myself into a career I wouldn't truly enjoy in the long run. With the decision of playing it safe, I had to delete my social media for a month just so I could avoid seeing everyone graduate and get their dream jobs, as I was still working minimum wage around the age of 23. I had no memories to make with friends or get in a relationship because my introverted personality avoided the anxiety of reaching out and making plans with someone. It was easier in high school, but when you don't see someone every weekday like you used to, it gets weirder to casually ask someone to hang out and get some lunch so you don't have to eat alone. Well, for me at least. I don't know. I overthink stupid shit like that. During this time in my life, I pretty much ran away from every decision that would have made my life worth living. And in all honesty, I know it's my fault, which is why I always felt the need to hate myself. When all of my frustrations finally hit a breaking point, reaching out to someone seemed like a selfish decision because I didn't want to waste their time. Who wants to care about a person they barely talk to? At that point in my life, I already alienated myself from most of my friends and family. So I tried to do what I thought to be altruistic and commit suicide. Would you like to take a guess at what happened? Did I do the old rope in a knot? Did I park my car inside the garage and leave the engine running? Maybe a traditional gunshot to the head? Well, if you guessed any of those options, your answer is unfortunately wrong. At around, I don't know, dude, maybe like 11:45 p.m., I took a ladder from the shed and leaned it up towards the roof of my house. I heard people survive jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, but my stubborn ass was confident an Olympic dive headfirst into the concrete of the driveway from 25 feet off of my second-story house would do the job. Unfortunately, my attempt to win a gold medal was denied when I slipped on a tile from the roof of the house, which led the tile to detach from the roof. The ladder wasn't tall enough to reach the roof, so my attempt to parkour the rest of the height up to the roof led me to putting too much pressure on one of the tiles with my foot as I tried lifting myself up, leading the roof tile to fall while shattering on top of my own car's fucking hood, causing the alarm to go off and echo throughout the silent neighborhood. By the time I could find my balance and eventually stand up, my mom rushed outside to check the noise. She saw the headlights of my car flashing with the alarm blaring the classic, "Someone's trying to break into the fucking car!" alarm. Thinking my car was being stolen, she yelled from the front door, threatening the non-existent car robbers that she was going to call the police. But no one answered. No one ran away. Curious as she could be, I watched as she cautiously approached my car to see if anyone was near it. No one in sight, but shattered clay spread across the hood of my car. However, when she turned around, she quickly noticed the ladder I placed in front of the garage door, and as she slowly followed with her eyes where the ladder led to, she saw me. The dumbass on top of the roof that was looking absolutely suspicious. It was too dark to notice me. The smartest thing I could think of instinctually was to not move a muscle and not say a single word. Maybe she wouldn't see me, I hoped. Well, too bad that night was a full moon. I didn't realize it at the time, but from her point of view, all she could see was the background of the moonlit sky and my silhouette standing completely still like I was the next Batman of our local town. I was completely frozen in fear, unprepared for the interaction I created, and too stupid to think of a lie to explain why the fuck I was on the roof late at night. Luckily, I didn't have to say much once I realized my mom could see me because she immediately screamed at the sight of me while sprinting back into the house and calling the cops, assuming I was a burglar or some type of serial killer ready to start their career with their first victim. When the police eventually came, I was on the porch awkwardly sitting in a chair since my mom locked the door and I didn't have my keys on me. One of the cops quickly opened their car door and was shouting commands at me while his gun was already drawn. I calmly raised my hands, turned and faced my back towards them, and laid on the floor. Now that I think about it, I should have rushed towards them so they would have shot me and still grant me the chance to earn my Olympic suicide medal. Probably wouldn't have been gold, but bronze doesn't sound half bad. All that mattered to me was finishing the race. Anyways, the police put me in handcuffs thinking I was a house burglar, and ashamed of fucking up my attempt to kill myself, I didn't even bother to try to explain to them that I lived in the house. that the person that called 911 was my mom, that I wanted to kill myself. In fact, I said nothing at all. I wasn't guilty of a crime, but I was guilty of a conscience I was trying to silence. Actually, I think getting caught attempting suicide is a legit crime. I don't even want to look that up though, because fuck that if it's true. One of the police officers kept asking, "Is there anyone else with you?" And all I did was shake my head. When my mom sheepishly peeked through the porch window and saw me in handcuffs, she abruptly opened the door and shouted, "Aaron, is that you? Were you on the flippin' roof?" And as the cops confusingly looked at my mom and then back at me, I gave a nervous smile and stuttered, "Yes." The police removed my restraints as my mom began walking towards the police car. With everyone completely confused, including me, my mom and the cops began taking turns interrogating why I was up on the roof so late at night. I was way too embarrassed to say the truth, and unaware of my rights to plead the fifth, I panicked and quickly came up with the awesome excuse that I was putting up lights on the roof for Halloween. The only thing was, we don't own any Halloween decorations, and it was during the middle of fucking September. The cops didn't understand my horrible lie, and my mom looked at me with utter confusion, but since I was the child of the homeowner, they awkwardly accepted my explanation and asked my mom if they were allowed to leave. As the two cops headed to their car with almost perfect timing, 3 more police cars came rolling up and slamming on their brakes, expecting a Hollywood shootout or some type of chaos. The original cop that handcuffed me waved his hands up and down and laughingly shouted, "It's alright, guys. The homeowner's kid was on the roof. He was apparently putting up lights for Halloween." "Halloween? This early? At midnight?" another officer responded with his window rolled down. "Never too early to celebrate. Probably just on the roof," then motioned his hands to act like he was smoking a joint as he turned around and looked at me sternly. All the officers joined in on a quick laugh and drove out of the cul-de-sac together almost as fast as they drove in. As the sounds of their tires rolling on the asphalt slowly dissipated, I was left with me and my mom standing in the driveway as she stared into my soul, completely baffled by my Halloween plea bargain. Oh man, was I fucking stupid. Not only was my genius Halloween excuse completely idiotic, but on top of that, I didn't even really have a clue if jumping off from the second story of the house would actually kill me. To be fair, I thought a pencil dive going headfirst into the concrete would do the job, but even then, what a horrible sight for my mom to see when she went outside the next day. Or even worse, what if I survived? I was never really a logical thinker when I was a teenager, but at the time, the irrational world I created inside my head seemed to make a lot of sense to me back then. I just thought I was a waste of space, just a useless piece to a puzzle I didn't belong to. That night, my mom refused to go to bed until I finally told her the truth. She started believing the idea that maybe I was doing drugs, but I refused to let that be the reason because if I was going to stay alive, I didn't want her to confiscate the weed I stashed under my socks in the closet. Out of all the things I could be proud about, I took pride in keeping my weed use a secret, even though she probably already knew that anyways, with the way that she said it. So, I forced myself to confess my ridiculously planned out way on how I was going to commit suicide. The weirdest part of confessing my suicidal thoughts was the fact that my mom wasn't even that sad. I was expecting her to burst into tears, but I was the one that ended up crying as I spewed out all my unorganized frustrations while she turned into the Incredible Hulk as she yelled at me for being so stupid. You can imagine the words that were said that night, but I'm not going to be the one to rant about it. I do my best to forget that day. After a pointless argument that went nowhere, I agreed to go to a mental hospital the next day so the conversation could end. That night, my mom forced me to sleep in her room and barricaded the door so I couldn't escape, as if I wasn't physically capable of moving a wedged chair from the door handle and leaving. After a couple of weeks in the hospital, I was eventually diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder, major depressive disorder, and warning signs of a dissociative identity disorder when I was 17 years old. I was stuck in that hellhole for almost a month and a half because I tried to plan a prison escape on my 3rd day. I got pretty close to breaking free until I learned the security officers are allowed to use their pepper spray on patients they deem violent just because I used some physical force to push someone out of the way as they opened the locked door to my freedom. Unfortunately, it didn't matter. I learned that there was another locked door I would have had to get through after the first one, which I was unaware of at the time. The classic double-door Minecraft trick to keep the sheep inside the stable, disrespectfully used against me. At my expense, I didn't know they usually release people after a couple of weeks of good behavior. I thought I was going to be stuck there for a year because I read on Reddit of people being there for months on end. Getting caught trying to escape was a mandatory minimum 1 month hold. Wow. Incredible. And filled with such great ideas. When I was able to finally go back home, things got worse. The medication forced into my mouth made me feel like I wasn't human. People at school kept asking where I'd been, and eventually the word got out that I attempted suicide. It was so embarrassing to deal with that it ruined my senior year of high school. Especially because I didn't even get to actually try to kill myself. I didn't get that instant regret feeling survivors talk about when they attempt it. I got interrupted before that could even happen. So for me, the motivational phrase they tell you to not do it still felt like bullshit to me. To help deal with all the drama, I disassociated myself from reality, gradually lost my connections with anyone I knew, and let life pass me by as I watched the opportunities to make new friends and new experiences constantly slip away from me because I struggled to truly know who I was or who I was meant to be. I had no passion for a career after I graduated, no effort to maintain a social life, no desire to see what my future might hold. In my eyes, I was already dead. The person I used to be before my depression and the life I used to live when I was happy was all just a distant memory that got further away from me with each passing day. It almost feels like those memories didn't happen. I stopped taking my medication after a year and a half, and I gradually just became okay with not being okay. Complacency became my favorite prescription drug, and I was addicted to never having to find out what my true potential was. Can't be disappointed in your own failure when you have nothing in your life to fail at, right? I still dealt with suicidal thoughts even with the medication I was given, but I was hopeful to see the day when things might be different. The blessing in disguise that came into my life was when I quit my job as a dishwasher and landed an interview at a local grocery store when I was 21 years old. It wasn't really an upgrade on finances, but at least I wouldn't be stuck washing dishes and hating my life even more at a restaurant that made the worst sushi. After a few weeks of working at the grocery store, I was immediately not a fan of talking to the stuck-up customers, so I became an expert of stocking the shelves, zoning the aisles, and keeping the inventory in the back room organized so I could avoid any possible social interaction. When a customer would ask me about something, I would say I was new and didn't know, and I did that for a long time. I was a hard worker, but only because I worked hard at avoiding people trying to ruin my day. My supervisor began to notice my efforts and admired how well kept everything was when I would finish my shifts. None of my other coworkers gave a shit about keeping the grocery store looking perfect. Obviously, I didn't either, but when you're trying to avoid as much human contact as possible by acting busy, you tend to get a lot of shit done. Within a year, my supervisor trusted me with the night shift, and I loved it. I was the only closer in my department, which meant working alone every shift. No coworkers to bother me, and less customers to deal with. I got greedy though. I'd stock and zone my aisles too fast, so that I could spend the rest of my time organizing and counting inventory in the back room. That way I wouldn't have to deal with a customer asking for help or using me as a punching bag to vent out their privileged complaints within the grocery aisles. This led to my bittersweet curse, the superpower that would change my life forever. End of chapter 1. Icy Food People, Daymares by Ashton Law. Anyways, if you got to this point or maybe you just skipped to the end, thank you for listening. Obviously, the first chapter is a little boring. I'm just trying to figure out how to spice things up, but the whole premise of the book is pretty much someone that it has insomnia and it pretty much triggers hallucinations from lack of sleep, to the point where he starts to dream while he's awake, and he's like sleeping while he's awake, if that makes sense. So he's daydreaming, but like literally seeing stuff as if he is in the dream, kind of like a drug. But it's fun. It's a fun book. I think I started a little too dark at the beginning, but I felt like I wanted to get the dark shit out of the way at the beginning so I could start the fun shit. But then I realized, oh, if you start the dark shit, then people are going to think it's always going to be dark. And then I'm like, damn, well, I don't want to rewrite this chapter, because then I got to rewrite like all the other chapters. So anyways, long story short, if you got to this point and you actually listen to the full thing, let me know how you feel about it. I promise you the other chapters are a little more fun, a little less serious. I just try to make it feel genuine, I guess. But if you feel like the first chapter is too serious to the point where it doesn't like set the hook for you, let me know, and I'll probably take that into consideration to rewrite it and make it more appealing and more entertaining. I just felt like I was like too fucking poetic or whatever. But yeah, it is a fun book. And I already forgot what I said in this like past minute, but yeah, let me know if you like the book. If you don't, or let me know if you like the first chapter. If you don't, I'm just gonna fucking rewrite it. And also, if you want to hear chapter 2 as an audiobook, if I get like maybe 5 people interested into listening for chapter 2, I'll record it. This shit took like an hour because I kept fucking up like the reading. But yeah, anyways, bye. Also, I suck at voice acting. Okay, bye.